The sun has set at Tottenham Hotspur. Our captain is leaving after 10 glorious years. This is the Heung-Min Son episode, and you're listening to the Crowing Cockerel podcast.
Good evening, chaps. How are we both doing?
Emotional.
Have we both stopped crying?
Has he stopped crying?
I'm keeping it in. I'm saving it. I'm saving it for that final goodbye because I don't think we've had it yet. You know, there's obviously been the announcement that he made prior to the Newcastle friendly, but there'll be the final official send-off. And I think at that moment, I'll go to bits.
The guard of honour throwing him up in the air in the Newcastle game. You're waiting for the club-produced video, aren't you? To send you over the edge.
Thing is, if I spent all the time looking at every single Son video that's now popping up on my feed, I'd probably be deserting my family. Basically, it would be repeating the week we had after we won the Europa League. So I can't lose 2 weeks in a single year. That whole thing around the Newcastle friendly, where everybody knew it was going, how organic was that? With not just the Tottenham players coming over, but the Newcastle players. And I'm sure we're going to mention this as we go along. But it's that thing about Son not just being, you know, one of Tottenham's favourite sons, but one of those players that other teams look at and go, yeah, he's a dude. He's a top geezer. He's one of those people that I think generally the football community warm to. And yeah, it gets you. And it was such a nice touch.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings though, because it's, you know, whilst obviously it was in his backyard, basically, from a Tottenham perspective, it just feels a little bit detached and a bit of a shame from my point of view that it was done in a pre-season friendly on the other side of the world. It's a real shame, I think, that we're not going to have a home friendly to really give him that full send-off. And it'd be interesting to see what the club do. I guess maybe they will parade him before, I guess, the Burnley game, the first Premier League game. I don't know. By then, he's not our player anymore. So it's a shame that I don't think he will get a proper full send-off that he absolutely deserves.
Neither did Kane, did it? It's just the nature of when transfers happen. The American League, different timings to the Premier League, isn't it? But whether he'll come back for a game, that will probably just sell out because of that. If he was going to come back just for a game to say bye at the side of the pitch, because what Tom alluded to, it's the character of the guy that I think transcends everything else. The fact he's been a brilliant Spurs player, but everybody that has played with him thinks he's the greatest human they've ever met. You know, and for a footballer to be like that and to show everybody that you don't have to be what some footballers are. You can be the guy that makes sure the kids that are coming from abroad are okay and everybody's getting on. And I saw a quote about why Ange gave him the captaincy. A lot of it was about he wanted to bring the squad together, and Son could start a conversation with anybody, and he could bring a table of different nationalities, different people, different ways of thinking, always making everybody feel welcome. You know, and it's like he must have the most best friends in the world because everybody's Son's best friend.
I do wonder if the only person that doesn't seem to have any great affection for him is his dad. When you looked at those scenes in the Newcastle game, and everyone was sort of this massive outpouring of emotion, and he was just stood there completely emotionless with the old teapot, wasn't it, or just hands on his hips, and yeah, it's and again, like obviously what we've heard about with how he was brought up and the training and the really crazy training.
But there's a documentary, isn't there? I think it's on Amazon, isn't it? You can watch the documentary. There's no secret that he puts a lot of his success down to the mentality that his dad evoked in him. I think some people will watch that and think slightly differently, but yeah, there's clearly a strength of character, shall we say, there.
But it's more than that. It's more than just the strength of character, because you can forge someone in that sort of environment, and you might expect them to come out to be battle hardened and gritty and determined, maybe even arrogant. But Son has never seemed like that, his personality at least. Gritty football player, dedicated football player, talent beyond belief. But that sort of decency and
Just a genuine warmth and kindness, isn't there, around him? It's exactly
yeah,
what you were saying. It's almost it's hard to understand how you can have both in such as you say, that real steely grit and determined, but coupled with that genuine, just human empathy and warmth. And there's no doubt he will be genuinely missed, not just at Tottenham, but by the whole footballing family. Everybody holds him in such great esteem and has so much affection for him. He will for sure be missed.
we can hope there's an opportunity that he gets a proper send-off at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where, of course, he scored the very first goal there, didn't he? So should get that honour of having a proper send-off.
I think that's a really good point, that if you think of the key moments that he's been involved in over the last 10 years, you know, it's not just that he's scored the goals he has. It's not just that assists goals relationship he had with Harry Kane. It's those pivotal, memorable moments that he's created. He scored the first goal at the new stadium. He won the Puskas Award at the stadium. He's won the Golden Boot. He's obviously lifted the first trophy that we've won in so many years, and he also lifted the second trophy that we've won in the last few months as well.
Yes, don't
Herbology.
forget the herbology.
For me, the absolute top Son moment was being at the stadium when he went from one end of the pitch to the other against Burnley. That, I think, will go down as probably the best goal I've ever seen live, and I doubt many people could find one better. It was a game with decent goals in it anyway, because Kane scored a 30-yard screamer that nobody remembers, because that goal is so iconic. And it was everything that makes Son great. It was the speed, the panic that he put into those defenders, but it was also, with the size of the stadium, you could feel people thinking, "Go on, keep going, go on," because it was good. 8 seconds or whatever. It's not like when you pig it in. You could see it build up, and then of course, he's been absolutely elite at one-on-ones forever. So as soon as he got through, it was just brilliant. He absolutely deserves to have that award against his name as well, because he doesn't just score goals. I mean, how many great goals has he scored? It is just ridiculous.
He's one of those players that he's one of those out of nothing players, isn't he? Like Bale had that, Gascoigne. Just all of a sudden, you pick the ball up wherever and decide, I'm going to make something happen. Some of the things he made happen were ridiculous. And that goal, I can't remember before or since where I've seen a player go through a team like that. And you're watching all of I was going to say all the defenders. It was all the strikers and the midfielders and the defenders absolutely terrified of getting anywhere near him.
It was just one of those where it was almost like he got the ball and he just decided he was going to score. And it was almost like when you're in the playground at school and the bigger boy comes round who's much better at football than everybody else and just decides to score a goal because he can and nobody else can stop him. He is one of the best players. And again, I think obviously we've been critical over the past couple of years where his performances have maybe not quite hit those heights, but one-on-one with the goalkeeper during those years, he barely ever missed.
I think as well that goal was the epitome of his approach to how he played, because we're talking about the skill and the class and the finishing, but that determination, that pace, that ability to run and run and run and keep going and giving it and giving it and giving it. Like in the last few seasons, again, like you're saying, Mark, that it felt like the quality has dipped off, but never the effort, never the ability to run around and chase things down and try to take us up the pitch and make stuff happen. That's never left. And yeah, I think that Burnley goal was the prime example of that utter tenacity and determination to get us forward and make stuff happen.
That is definitely my favourite goal. But what I really have always liked about Heung-Min Son is he can do stuff left foot, right foot. You don't know which is his stronger foot. And that classic goal, he's just on that edge of the 18-yard box and he'll whip
And
it
it didn't
into the
matter
top
what
corner.
corner, to your point. It didn't matter whether he was on the left or the right-hand side.
It was quality either way. And I don't know if you remember, but he went through a spell a couple of seasons back where he just wasn't scoring and he eventually got dropped. He went out of the team and you're talking about grit and determination. He came on against Leicester. I think it was 2-2 at the time, and Leicester were bottom of the league because when Brendan Rodgers was still there and they got relegated. And he came on, and within a very short period of time, he put one in the top corner with his right foot, one in the top corner with his left foot, and then he went through on a one-on-one. And it was the outpouring of emotion at that point because every Spurs fan, even if they've criticised his performance, has always wanted him to be brilliant. Nobody has ever wanted to get rid of him or him to just go away or anything like that. The perfect scenario has always been Son being Son.
Well, and this is why this is the perfect time for him to leave because, holding that trophy up in May, he's achieved everything he wanted to achieve, and that was the one thing that was missing. Obviously, it's the one thing that he's managed to go one up from Harry Kane on that Spurs, and it's now the perfect time. There is absolutely nothing for him to gain by staying another season, and we've said that in previous episodes. And I think that's why, obviously he'll be missed. But I'm really, really happy that it's happening now. I think it's the perfect
absolute perfect time.
Yeah, I think he's cemented that legendary status. I think he perhaps was even already there. The assist record that he's got, the combination scoring record with Harry Kane, and obviously just being with us during this period, decades worth of service. So I think he probably already had legendary status, but that absolutely rooted it. And to be captain as well, lifting that trophy. I'll tell you another thing. After that Europa League win, again, that emotion that you see with him and the reaction of other people seeing that emotion, you've got other football fans going, yeah, go on, Sonny. Nice one. So that outpouring of sort of affection for him. Actually, that leads me on to some of the memories I've got of him. And it's a footballing one, but it's not necessarily about the goals. And it might seem a bit odd, but it was when he got a red card. And this was back in November 2019. We were playing Everton. And do you remember he went in for that tackle on Andre Gomez? At first, it looked really innocuous. Ref came over. It was a yellow card. And then all of a sudden, it became very clear that Gomez was not all right. And almost immediately, Son is in bits. He realizes that, this innocuous challenge that he made, he's really hurt him. I think Gomez ended up with a broken leg. But there wasn't VAR, but on the reaction of that.
Yeah, because it actually wasn't even a bad tackle. There was a slip, wasn't it? And he fell over into him.
Well, he fell into Aurier, who was trying to cover, and that was almost more impactful than the challenge that Son made. But Son was in bits. And it's that thing about him connecting with people beyond a football level. You could see that he was genuinely upset for that other player and felt responsible. And you started seeing Everton players coming over to Son. I mean, at first they were like, oh, you've injured our player, and talking to the ref and getting angry on their player's behalf. That's fair enough. But as soon as they saw Son, they were like going over to him and they're telling him it was all right. And one of the coaches is got his arm around Son. He gets sent off. He's obviously not happy about it. And he heads down into the dressing room. And I don't know if you realise this, but this was during the Amazon series. So you actually get to see his reaction coming into the changing room. And he's going, it's not a red. But then he just sits down and you could just see him sink into himself. And he just sits there sort of almost in despair. And of course, fans didn't see that until months and months after. But the amount of support he got afterwards, with people coming and saying, it wasn't a foul. He obviously didn't mean it. Everybody jumped to his defence. You had people on Match of the Day. You had news articles about it. The red card got rescinded, and I think there was quite a nice exchange between Son and Gomez then during that recovery period. So for me, it's that thing that points to him being not just a great footballer, but a great person that the football community genuinely connected with outside of Tottenham, outside of the club that he plays for.
Yeah.
And how often
Yeah,
does
no,
that
that's true.
happen?
It's interesting actually that you mentioned that that Amazon series, because that of another incident that got shown up on that same series where he had a massive bust up on the pitch with Lloris. And
Yeah, he did.
funnily enough,
Yeah.
of course, I was going to
Yeah.
mention earlier when we were talking about LAFC, who is at LAFC? Hugo Lloris. But again, it just shows that other side of him, like we were saying. We have the human side of him, but we have that real steely, determined, professional, and yeah, they had this big bust up. Lloris accused him of not tracking back, and yeah, they had this big bust up on the pitch, and I think it continued into the changing rooms, and it just shows how much it means to him.
He's not a wallflower. I think there's a danger thinking because he's a nice guy that
Exactly.
he can't stick up for himself and he doesn't, he doesn't win at all costs. He's not confident in himself. It's not, and again, it just shows up others that can't be like
Yeah.
Son. I think we should all aim to try and be as good as we can be at our chosen profession or whatever. You don't have to trample on people. You can be a rounded human being, and I'm sure he doesn't take any rubbish. But what he does do, by all accounts, is support, lift people up, not
Yeah.
push them down.
I don't think you get to where he's got to in the game if he didn't have that mental strength and something about him. And as you say, it's just the fact that he's able to do that, but also be a genuinely nice guy is, yeah, it's unusual.
Come on there, Mark. So what's your memory? What's your
My favourite
top
memory,
moment?
again, it's this whole thing around different styles of leadership, and obviously this was way before he was captain. But I'm going back to the Manchester City game, Champions League quarterfinal, second leg. We'd won the first leg 1-0. He scored, and go into Man City, and I think if we're being honest, because we were not in a good run of form at that time, I think most Spurs fans probably expected us to get a bit of a battering in that game. We were hoping that we could keep a bit tight, and of course Raheem Sterling scored after 4 minutes, and I certainly feared the worst. I'm sure a lot of fans feared the worst. And then all of a sudden, Sonny came up, popped up with 2 goals, I think in about 8 minutes. Certainly it was after about 15 minutes, we were suddenly 2-1 up. And I think that just gave us the belief, and having someone like him do that at that time, it's like we've said, he always seems to pop up in the most important moments. And at a time when we needed someone, he was there, and he produced the goods, and he had the quality, and he had the timing, and he had that leadership and the talent to be able to do that. And I think that just gave the whole team the belief that actually we can do this. We're not going to roll over. And of course, it was a crazy game in the end. City went and scored another 3 goals, and Llorente finally got the goal that counted. And then, of course, there was the injury time drama as well. But I don't think any of that happens. I think we do get steamrolled unless Son pops up at that time, gives us that renewed belief and something to hold on to. And he's done that all through his career, but that's obviously the one that sticks out for me is that, and it was against Man City. He always used to pop up against Man City, didn't he? Man City hated him.
He's a big game player, but what I was going to say is that Champions League run, got to remember that Kane was injured, so he was the main man. He had to stand up.
Yeah. Well, and of course, and that's a really good point, because obviously he was playing centre forward, wasn't he? I think he was. I know Llorente came on later in the game, but he was basically most of his career he'd played on the wing, and then Kane all of a sudden is injured, and so now Sonny's being pushed into a fairly unfamiliar position and being asked to do what he needed to do, and he did. Just an unbelievable effort and an unbelievable performance again in a game where we needed him so badly.
And I think as well, it's that second goal, which is an absolute beaut. I think it's not just that he scores the goals when we need them. Sometimes it's the way he scores them. It changes the dynamic. It's not a mad goalmouth scramble when he taps it in. It's real quality. it's worldies, it's curlers right into the top corner, and that gives you such any goal in a big game gives you a lift. But when it's something like that, when it's pure quality, pure class, right when you need it, out of nothing. I've got that Arsenal goal he scored during COVID emblazoned on my memory. You know, like the Burnley one. It's that weird thing of him scoring an absolute screamer, and you can just see the empty stands. And there's something very wrong about that. Nobody witnessed that goal live.
And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, that goal.
It was 35 yards out or something. It was
it
so
was just,
far out.
Yeah.
Brilliant goal.
I saw a stat somewhere that over a long period of time, his goals against XG, so his proven finishing ability has been the best in the league. He will score far more goals generally than he should, but he's kept that going for most of the time that he's been at Spurs, because he can get it in from anywhere, can't he?
Yeah. I can't remember any headers.
No,
There will
I
be
sort of wish
some.
he scored. Yeah, well, you say that. I think I was racking my brains actually earlier, thinking he must have scored a header. Can't remember.
Think of any. There must, if there's anybody listening, please tell us your favourite Heung-Min Son header and comment below.
I think something to mention that we've not touched on as well when we talk about him. Again, we've so often relied on him in big moments. That's not just for Spurs. You've got to remember for career as well. He is insane. Every time he goes to Korea, like, he's probably the most famous Korean. He is different level fame over there, and every time he steps on that football pitch for Korea, it's on him. Like, the expectation is on him.
But it's why ultimately he probably ended up not announcing anything until just before the game in Seoul, because the tour is paid for based on him being there, wasn't it? So apparently there was this £10 million appearance fee that wasn't going to happen unless Son was playing. And if he wasn't able to play due to injury, it would be halved, or it'd be something like that. He's just absolutely massive. But again, going back to his character, to have that burden and to be able to shoulder that
with
burden
such humility as well, wasn't it?
for years, and there's brilliant moments. There's the clip when he does a Sky interview and he makes sure the microphone is put down properly. When he did his interview after he lifted the Europa League trophy to Korean TV, he apologised for it taking him so long to win something. It's just like absolute fantastic humility he has. But a little bit left field is we've been talking about how good a finisher he is. And this is why sometimes you have to believe that stars align, because he is probably the best one-on-one finisher, certainly Spurs have had ever. And I'd suggest he's probably the best in the world. People are going to disagree with me, and I don't care, to be honest. But Son one-on-one, it usually scores. The one time where he really messed it up was against Man City at home.
Yes, of course.
Where if Man City didn't win, Arsenal would have won the league, right? But the flip side of that is that we finished fifth that season, only a couple of points behind Villa. And if we'd finished fourth, we would have got in the Champions League.
Which we wouldn't have won.
Now, if we got in the Champions League, we wouldn't have got in the Europa League. So he wouldn't have won the Europa League. So he's so good.
Not only can he stop Arsenal winning a title, he can have a premonition of his own future.
It's like the Minority Report. He's got this massive screen. He's got all these calculations involved. He's like, I've got to do it.
Wow.
So, So because there's no reason he missed that. He's through a goal, and Son doesn't really miss one.
It was fate.
But the stars aligned, don't you? And you look at that.
That slide indoors moment.
Oh, look. Your point was unbelievable before. That's really unbelievable. Come on.
The other kind of off the pitch impact of Son not being there is that we're going to sell an awful lot less shirts. And that financial impact cannot be underestimated. He has brought in some serious pounds over the past 10 years in those shirt sales, and just the interest and that we've had. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I'm curious to see what the drop off will be, because I think there's a legacy. He's created a legacy. And unfortunately, if you've started supporting Spurs, it's quite difficult. And yes, there will be people that came to watch Spurs purely because they wanted to see Heung-Min Son. And they've spent a lot of money in the club shop. Son's shirts massively outsell anybody else's. And by all accounts, a lot of those shirts are bought with quite a few other shirts to take home back to Korea. There is obviously a commercial aspect to that, but I think it would be really harsh on those fans that pay a lot of money to come over to see Spurs, and those fans that turned up for that friendly, those fans that are probably just as engaged as fans that are here. Because one thing about fans living in Asia and different parts of the world, you've got to remember the kickoff times don't work for them quite a lot of the times. If you're a Spurs fan and going for a league season like last season and you're having to watch games really late at night or really early in the morning, kudos to you, because I could just about bear it when the kickoff's at 8 o'clock in the evening and we're being rubbish. I think that there's a build up there that and a base there that yes, there might be a bit of a drop off, but I don't think it's. I think it's disingenuous and I think it's lazy to suggest that these fans that have come over and supported Spurs because of Heung-Min Son are just gonna.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I think
Yeah,
I think for sure the brand awareness, brand Tottenham Hotspur is a far bigger entity in Asia now than it was 10 years ago, and that is because of him. And I was going to ask actually, kind of, what do we think his legacy is? And I think that's certainly part of it. Is he has opened up the Tottenham Hotspur brand to future generations in that part of the world. So that's for sure, that is got to be beneficial for us.
So is he our greatest ever transfer? Is he the best player we've ever bought? Because, you could think of players like Bale and, Gaza and all that sort of stuff, but none of those players that I can think of captained the side, had that longevity, had that consistency,
Yeah,
and
I
left
think that's
on
a
a
good
high.
shout.
Yeah. So obviously we've got to caveat this with we're only going back so far, because otherwise we're going to get people going. Well, what about Gary Mabbott? What about Premier League era? Premier League era, because we're youngsters. We only talk about Premier Leagues. Premier League era. Yeah, I'm struggling to think of anybody else that you could argue we bought players that may be better. Gareth Bale, for example, we would have to say was phenomenal. But yeah, for the best money we've spent, yeah, absolutely. 10 years of real quality. Yes, he didn't win lots, but he got very close more times than most Spurs teams over the last 20, 30 years. And he gave us one of the best moments. Because the winning the Europa League final was the best moment. The game wasn't brilliant, although it was really tense. We got there in. But Son lifting that trophy, and I've watched a lot of trophy lifts, and a lot of them are rubbish.
Well, a lot of them aren't Spurs.
Well, this is it, and there's probably the difference there. But he had the Korean flag round his waist, didn't he? And he turned to the group, so the name and number with the Korean flag, and he lifted it, and you could see all the joy on the players' faces as the ticker tape went up and everything. It was brilliant, and he did have the trophy bumped against his forehead in the scrum, and he's got a scar above his eye where the trophy bumped into the forehead, which hopefully doesn't ever go away. Reminder. So he's always got this permanent reminder.
Nice.
Heung-Min Son, obviously Heung-Min, that beautiful H. I'm thinking of H's because we've been talking about the man and the character, and just as we've been talking, I've just been writing some words down. Humility, honest, and heart. That's Heung-Min Son. He's he's done us proud.
Oh, you're gonna get me going, mate. I can feel the lump in my throat and everything.
He's one of a kind, that's for sure, and he will definitely be missed. So thank you for all the good times, Sonny.
Build the statue, Leary. Build the statue.